Hey, alright! It's time for Super Beard Bowl Season 3. It's the same, but different. You'll see what I mean. This month, you decided to let Brett do whatever he wanted, and he decided to pit Alex and Gerard against each other in a battle of skill, wits, and ridiculousness. It's Beard versus Beard. The next public vote begins Monday, August 9th, where you choose what we play next. So don't miss it. Cuckoo Kata! Cuckoo Kata!
Hello and welcome to the first and last Beard versus Beard debate. I'm your mediator, Brett Bayonne, and today you're going to see debates on, about, and with video games. Debating for you tonight and participating from San Pedro is Alex Facciani.
Thank you. It's an honor just to be here.
And from Palos Verdes is Gerard Khalil.
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here.
What you're going to see is a series of 3 questions. Each participant will have a 2 minutes portion to present the arguments concerning that question. And then after each of those participants does so, they will each take a minute to rebut the argument from their competitor. We are also going to be playing a game called No Eyes with this. What that means is, while answering any particular question or addressing any one particular topic, there will be a single letter that is taboo. For example, during question number 2, it might be the case that neither participant can use the letter M anywhere in their speech whatsoever. If they do, I will let that participant know, and they will immediately have to take one of those marshmallows and stuff it into their mouth. They cannot chew, they cannot swallow, and they cannot spit it out until the entire portion with that one question is over. Each time that the participant uses the taboo letter during that question period, another marshmallow will get added to their mouth. However, if a participant also stammers in their speech, talks like Tarzan, or in general makes it too obvious that they're trying to avoid the taboo letter, then I reserve the right to force them to add an additional marshmallow to the whole load. Are the rules clear to both competitors?
Yes.
Great. So, gentlemen, good luck to you both. Let's go ahead and get started. Mr. Khalil won the coin flip before we began recording. So this first question goes to the both of you. Mr. Khalil, you'll have 2 minutes once you begin saying your first word. Ever since the dawn of DLC, the concept of post-release additional content has been a particularly divisive topic among video game enthusiasts. While many players relish the opportunity to experience more from their favorite titles, others prefer the comfort of knowing that their game, as it stands, is complete. I ask of the both of you, is there such a thing as a complete game? And if so, what is it? Mr. Khalil.
Can I ask a question about that before we start?
Yes.
When you say complete game, are you referring to a, like when you say an example of a complete game, do you mean like a literal game example, or just like, can there be a perfect game?
What is the definition? Is there such a thing as a complete game? Mm-hmm. And if so, what is the definition of a complete game?
Perfect, thank you.
Oh, by the way, you can't use the letter T at all, starting now. Two minutes from the moment you first start speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Please start, or else I will force a marshmallow already.
The letter T. Okay, here we go.
Starting, yeah, now.
I am very unsure how to...
Mr. Khalil, thank you.
Begin the situation.
Uh-huh.
And here, I believe that is very possible.
Mr. Khalil,
Yes.
a marshmallow, please.
Does a perfect game tend to be This so perfect is so much. I intellectually, I believe there's no way the thinking can exist. The tradition of
Mr. Khalil,
Mm-hmm.
despite the amount of marshmallows in your mouth, I'm pretty sure that I heard at least 2 T's in there, so please add 2 more. Thank you. Thank you. 45 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
Can you please speak up, Mr. Khalil?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Your time is up. Thank you very much. Mr. Facciani, please.
Thank you for your time. It seems like
Mr. Facciani, please. Go ahead.
indie games are a little too lucrative for how
Again?
expensive they are to make. And it makes it hard for a AAA company to fund a game and get it made at the budget that they like to make them. And so I feel like DLC is a necessary evil in some ways. It also boils down to a PR issue. In terms of the publishers selling the idea to the people that are buying the game, which I feel is more confusing than anything, and a misunderstanding of how the game industry works. People think that when purchasing a game, they'll entitled to the content. But really, it's just a license to play the game and merely a convenience.
I'm sorry, convenience?
Convenience
Okay, sure.
for the software.
45 seconds.
And so, I think it really needs to be a message. When I look at a message,
You don't need to.
Uh-huh. Thank you very much, Mr. Facciani. Thank you.
You put so many more in your mouth. How did you do that? How large is your mouth?
It's just what I do.
Mr. Khalil, you have 1 minute for your rebuttal on Mr. Facciani's comments.
Mr. Fasciani is right. And that everyone out there has to get themselves to citizen. And the point is there has to be nothing else to follow our DLC plan. Now, indie games have the ability to expand their lines and both across the board.
I'm sorry, how many? How many? Okay, take another marshmallow then, please. And that's time. Thank you very much. Okay. Mr. Facciani, 1 minute for your rebuttal, please.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that communication is the key here. Getting your message out or making sure that everybody can hear it, right? Because here's the thing. Anybody who doesn't understand this, like I said, it's about the games industry and not understanding how things are done and how things are made, and that DLC is often part of the original budget for the game, but selling it later is the only way that they're going to raise enough money to make the game. So rather than focusing on whether or not you own it, because let's be honest, you
Mr.
don't.
Facciani, please. There you go. Thank you.
Legally, you simply don't own it. But we need to work on the messaging, because just like a mouthful of marshmallows, bad PR makes sure that no one knows what the fuck you're trying to say. And for that reason, we need to build community.
Thank you very much. That's time.
Thank you.
Thank you, both competitors. While I admire and am equally stupefied by both of you throwing caution to the wind and embracing the marshmallows, I'll advise the both of you for the next question to please at least attempt to avoid the taboo letter. Thank you very much. Okay, so the next question is as such, stigmatized since its nascence, the subgenre that's known as video game movies has had its fair share of growing pains, with the vast majority of its titles earning poor to middling reviews across the board. But as video games themselves continue to grow in popularity, the demand for satisfying cinema based off of those games continues to grow as well, which begs the question, exactly what elements are critical in the making of a good video game movie? Mr. Khalil, please take it away, and the letter is W.
Making a great video game movie would require a
Mr.
ton
Khalil?
of...
Marshmallow. Continue.
Making a video game movie requires a certain level of commitment that focuses on building great characters and great plot that aligns itself with the stories of the games.
One more.
The problem... Why? Why didn't...
Trust me.
Great. So, it's not hard to take a video game and adapt it to a successful movie, because there's so much source material out there, and people just don't understand that if you take the part of the game and turn it into a film, it can be great as long as you focus on characters, plots, arcs, and everything in between. It's just like following all the great arcs, right? Dragons, slaying the dragons, and all this establish the space of a hero that have the glue up all together. So, the reality is, the video game industry is a $100 billion industry, and the movie industry is honestly down. And in order for them to understand what this is going to be, they have to focus on the fan service as well as plot and character relations in order to find the future of the video game industry. I've lost my time. Thank you.
2 minutes, Mr. Facciani.
Adaptation of a game is a little bit less straightforward than it would be with a book or a comic, because interactivity is so core to the experience of the game for people. And I think a lot of the time, you know, if you just adapt the plot of a game, you're going to be missing out on a large part of the experience, the essence of the game, right? So as much as story is important and as much as game stories are, you know, some of them are lauded, I think that they never really reach the heights of a story that's written just from the passive perspective. And so I think
thank you.
I think that, you know, focusing on adapting the essence of the experience of playing the game is going to get you a better response from the people who might be looking
Mr. Falciani,
for
please.
the
Please.
the
Marshmallow, please. Thank you. Continue.
might be looking for that experience because of their fandom of the game, right? So for me, story is important, but I do think that essence that is the real key to this. Like, I think the essence of adapting the game is going to come from, you know, bringing people who are familiar with the game into the world of the game, and people who aren't familiar with the game, you know, into the experience. And almost like it might need to feel different to really adapt. Because when you look at all these games that become movies, they don't really gel. Everything legitimate. And I think
that's time. Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right, Mr. Khalil, you have 1 minute for your rebuttal. And the letter is still W.
To go against Mr. Falciani's point, I have to add that the reason why people love these games is because of the characters and their plots. There is a certain level of commitment in which the players at home identify.
Mr. Khalil, thank you.
Identify across the globe. People love video games, not because of just the experience, but because of the characters and the work that comes together. If you take a movie like Doom, for example, Doom had tons of video game references that emulated the experience of what it's like to play Doom
Mr. Khalil.
in the film. But at the end of the day, it did not work well, despite how much
Mr. Khalil.
emphasis is put. They put on what.
That's time. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. You've got 1 minute on the clock for your final rebuttal, Mr. Falciani. Please continue.
I think aiming for a blockbuster with every video game movie is kind of a mistake, because games aren't written with that sort of scale in mind. And I think that the plot, while it can be quite engrossing, I think if you
Mr.
appeal
Falciani?
just to,
Thank you.
if you just appeal to people who are going to be into the plot, you're going to lose the people who are there for the game. Sometimes that's going to mean taking your big plan and slipping it down into a much smaller movie. Just like how there's movies about everything from divorce to living with illness to all these other things, I think game movies can be other things.
Thank you. Thank you. That's time. Thank you. For the purposes of time, we're only going to be able to give each competitor 1 minute for their initial arguments for this final question. And it is as follows. It's undeniable that the concept of genre itself is somewhat flawed, with tenuous, blurry borders existing between seemingly disparate styles. Consequently, the definitions of certain genres, or lack thereof, is reflected in their less than perfect titles. Case in point, the Metroidvania. Gentlemen, should the genre be known as Metroidvania? And if not, what should they be called? Mr. Khalil, the letter B does not exist. Please, you have 1 minute. Please go ahead.
In my opinion, Metroidvanias can easily insert themselves into a different type of genre altogether. Breaking it down,
It comes down to the simple fact that people want to classify something that is digestible and understandable across the medium. Metroid and Castlevania ultimately are two different games. However, everyone out there loves even just the word Metroidvania because of how it comes out of your mouth. At the end of the day, the simple way to approach it is to stop calling these games by either Metroid or Castlevania, let alone Metroidvanias, which is to simply give credit where credit is due. These games are a holistic experience.
Thank you, Mr. Khalil. Thank you. 1 minute on the clock, Mr. Facciani. Take your time.
Thank you. Sorry. I believe that language is ever evolving and that practicality is a much better reason to adopt a turn of phrase than anything else. So brass tacks, it comes down to this. If it's in use as a word, you know, the nuance of whether it's a Metroid game or a Castlevania game or what that really means with regard to the mechanics of the game, to me, is not that important. As long as we can all together agree that, you know, what we're all talking about is going to have some basic similarities.
Mm-hmm.
And what it comes down to for me is that rather than trying to get the masses to confirm some sort of cultural correctness, what they're going to use in practice is always just going to be the most communicative terminology. Thank you.
1 minute for your rebuttal, Mr. Khalil.
Every title deserves a chance to stick to its own merits. The fact that we conflate combining
two games in an attempt to classify an entire genre's worth of titles just doesn't work. Games can exist in their own bubble in a way where we can respect and trust the developers to create whatever experience they want to. It's a shame that we have to sit there and vary games just because they don't fit your Metroidvania style. Everyone out there loves an Metroidvania. I do, you do, he does. But just because we have to try, it comes back to respecting the developers and the players. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Facciani?
I think the fact that games are so young as an art form and as a medium compared to like almost anything, like books and film are both very like straightforward and passive and similar to each other. But because mechanics are always evolving and because, you know, genres aren't so much based on content as they are mechanics, and innovation is still very key to game design and development within those genres, I think it's even trying to think of what we would call them instead of Metroidvanias, it seems like a pointless exercise. And I think that we all kind of as a whole know what Metroidvania means. And I think that for that reason, we should continue using it. Just as an example, because I think that, you know.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Well, we've come time for our participants to give their final thoughts. Mr. Khalil, your final thoughts. You have 30 seconds.
And?
Oh, no, you're free. Any final thoughts?
Oh.
But if you'd like to put some more in your mouth, I don't think anyone's going to stop you.
I'm fine with that.
Are
30
you sure?
seconds. I am totally fine with it.
I see.
Thank you. I don't even remember any of the goddamn questions anymore.
Understood. Mr. Facciani, please.
I think what we need to remember is that video games are a medium separate from all other mediums, and our constant attempts to put it in a box that other mediums of entertainment and art fit into is going to make it challenging to classify. We kind of have to treat it as like new life and kind of just watch it grow how it grows and, you know, let it do its own thing. And I think a lot of the animosity towards video games and gamers has to do with the fact that we're trying to compare them to fans of other types of stuff. And I think that in general, that's a good rule of thumb for gaming as a whole.
Thank you, sir.
I see the rest of my time.
Thank you. Mr. Khalil, are you sure you don't want one last marshmallow?
The video game industry is a forever evolving process, right? It's $100 billion going into films and comics and mediums across the board. DLC is hurting gamers because they just want a complete experience as possible to get out there. Metroidvania is an easy way to identify a square peg for a circle, and people want that. At the end of the day, we just want cohesion in a place where you can feel like the thing that we care about matters more to us than anything else.
Well said, and thank you both gentlemen for joining me and joining us, and the same goes to you in the audience. This has been the first and only Beard versus Beard debate, and now the decision is up to all of you. Please let us know in the comments which Beard Bro you thought had the best points across the questions, and also let us know how disgusted you were by these entire proceedings. There will be more Beard versus Beard in the future. I've been Brett Bayonne. I've been joined by Gerard Khalil and Alex Facciani. Thank you.
Sorry for the shape of my mouth.
I'm very sorry for all this. Forgive me.
So here we are, once again. Bearded men have reached the end. Well, I don't know what comes next. All I know is you made it this far, this is your end card. See you next episode, hope you enjoyed the show. The Beard Bros.